Hi, my name is LJ, and this is for COM 580, Social Influence and Persuasion, and this will be my book review of our assigned text, Crystallizing Public Opinion. So the book, Crystallizing Public Opinion, provides an in-depth description of the field of public relations. In particular, it gives a thorough explanation of the profession of public relations, which is referred to as the Public Relations Council, and explains how they go about interacting with the nebulous and vague entity known as the public. Given that it was written and published in 1923, it is essentially the first book to give a scholarly definition of the field of public relations. A major strength of the book is the practical way in which it defines the role of the Public Relations Council. It does this through constant reference to real-world situations where public opinion and the public itself are key factors, such as through news stories, examples of issues on the international stage, advertisements, and etc. When explaining the relationship between the press and the public, Bernays points to the real example of how the New York Times felt the need to justify its inclusion of a scandalous story to the public. Utilizing these practical examples increases the credibility of the author and demonstrates in a real way the impact of public relations. Furthermore, the book provides a candid look at how public opinion is formed and helps to conceptualize the idea of public opinion in a way that is simple to grasp. Bernays defines public opinion as the aggregate result of individual opinions, and goes on to describe how people will form strong opinions on matters that they have little understanding of. It is also described later on in the book that these opinions are swayed less by facts and logic, and more by appeals to emotion and instinct, which speaks to the often capricious and malleable nature of public opinion. This definition of the topic is useful because it highlights the ambiguity of public opinion and reaffirms the importance of the Public Relations Council and knowing how to utilize it for the sake of the client. As we have learned in our studies, strategic communication and persuasion are most effective with knowledge about one's target audience, and this book provides great guiding principles for those interested in making their communication. The content of this book is intractably related to persuasion because it puts into perspective the role of the persuader. In this case, the Public Relations Council, interested in establishing the client's idea in the public mind, and the role of the public, who both shapes and is shaped by the media. Much of the content of the book is concerned with what measures the Public Relations Council can take in order to influence public perception of an idea, which is at the heart of persuasion. Additionally, Bernays also touches on the dynamic of the persuader and the persuadee, and explains that even though it may seem like the role of the Public Relations Council is to establish an idea in the public mind and exert change through a novel idea, in reality, the public establishes what they will and will not be swayed by, and the Public Relations Council must work with the limits of public acceptance, lest their attempts at persuasion only harden people's stances against their ideas. In order to assist the Public Relations Council with their work, the book provides numerous tactics that are informed by observations of public tendency. One of these tactics is to be aware of what the public is ready to hear. As explained earlier, the Public Relations Council is not responsible for creating and establishing public opinion. Instead, their goal should be to satisfy a real or perceived need and tailor their message to sentiments that the public already holds for maximum impact. A second tactic is to, whenever possible, frame their case in the form of an issue or something in response to a conflict. Bernays identifies multiple examples where an important topic is discussed amongst the public, but little action is taken because there is no conflict to fight for. People are more likely to be engaged with a topic or idea that arouses them, such as a perceived wrong or an enemy. In general, the more the Public Relations Council appeals to people's base instincts, the more likely they are to motivate their public and get a real, visceral reaction. A third tactic is to intensify identification and messaging with as many groups as possible in order to secure acceptance and a response from these groups. This does not mean trying to make one message that generalizes to all groups, but emphasizing certain aspects of a topic to certain groups so that their message is more appealing to a broader audience. Being able to see how a message may look from different points of view will improve how well a message can generalize to as many aspects of society as possible. Now, these tactics are helpful. However, it is important to recognize that the context in which this book was written is very different from the current age. After all, crystallizing public opinion is almost a century old, and the communicative landscape along with scholarly research into persuasion and rhetoric, has advanced significantly since the time it was written. Due to this, several critiques can be leveled at some of the claims in this book in light of new perspectives and empirical studies, particularly in regards to human behavior. One of the major aspects that Bernays finds about the public as an entity is that it is made up of individuals who have in some way given up their individuality for the sake of belonging to a larger group. He points to Martin's research, which purports that, in groupthink, those in groups sacrifice individual instinct for the self-satisfaction and greater sense of self-importance in a group, which explains why people may hold strong opinions on topics they personally do not know much about. In lieu of current research regarding personal values, beliefs, and attitudes, I think this aspect of groups can be challenged and is indicative of a time that put less stock into individual motivations for behavior. According to our Perloff text, an individual is not only motivated by a desire to be a part of an external group, but also by internal values, which are where many of their beliefs and attitudes spring from. The belief that people are part of larger groups simply because of a desire for self-importance, and that they do so at the expense of their individuality, does not, in my opinion, give proper credit to the complexities of their motivations. Especially in a more individualistic culture like America, motivations to hold opinions and attitudes are rooted both in a desire to be a part of a larger group, as well as to uphold their own values and maintain their beliefs. A persuasive strategy that only targets the values of a group might miss important nuances of the individuals that make up that group, so it would be better to incorporate knowledge about those things for a more effective outcome. One theory I think is very relevant to this topic on individual motivations for holding beliefs and attitudes is social judgment theory. The key point of this theory is that attitude change through persuasion is mediated by an individual's judgmental processes, where they compare the message to where they stand on an issue and determine whether to accept or reject that message based on where it falls in their latitude of acceptance, rejection, or non-committance. The content of this book is concerned with how to get the public to get behind an issue that they may have already developed an opinion or knowledge about, however limited, and this theory is an excellent way of conceptualizing what messages might be too radical for some individuals to consider. Furthermore, in light of the prior criticism, I think this theory is more suited to developing messages with individuals in mind, rather than groups as a whole, and would allow for a better understanding of the individual makeup of certain groups, rather than just looking at the stereotypes those groups hold in general. Overall, this book has been a very useful resource for understanding the role of public opinion in a scholarly light, and I enjoyed my time with it. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.